Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe on this Tuesday. Breaking down the latest Chelsea news in today's video. We're going to be speaking about pre-season a little bit, some players returning, Erling Haaland. Will that deal actually happen this summer? Will Chelsea be forced to look for a plan B? And could Antoine Griezmann on loan from Barcelona be that plan B? And finally, we'll speak about Jorginho's future at Chelsea, a potential new contract for the Italian midfielder who's just won Euro 2020. But before we get into any of that good stuff, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell. We're on the road to 25k subs, so we're getting close. It'd be wonderful to reach that goal before the start of Chelsea's 21-22 season. Also hit the like button because it helps new people find the channel as well. So of course, pre-season has begun. I think that's quite exciting, and it's been quite easy for me to switch sort of my England head back to, you know, Chelsea from the other night with the heartbreak. But it's great to see the players back, at least the ones that haven't really got much sort of look in under Thomas Tuchel, whether they've been out on loan or at least, you know, some of those fringe players, some of the young players who could be getting their first opportunity at first team football, at least in pre-season. There are so many names to go through, but just ones that I picked out, of course, Ruben Loftus-Cheek back at Cobham, and this is kind of his final chance, you think, to make it at Chelsea and impress Thomas Tuchel. Trevor Chalobah, I think this could be a big pre-season for him. The likes of Dujon Sterling, Conor Gallagher, Tino Livramento, Mark Gurhey. Can these players break in and maybe find themselves still in the first team squad as we head into that full season for Chelsea? Because I think that Thomas Tuchel, one of the things that gives some of these players hope is the fact there's going to be sort of a staggered return of the players involved at the Euros, and the likes of Jorginho, Emerson, Mason Mount, Reece James, Ben Chilwell, particularly players that featured in the final starting 11 at Porto in May, probably won't be fully ready for that first game in the Super Cup, you know. So some of these players could find themselves in that starting 11, and you never know what could happen from there. Chelsea will need a big squad once again, not as big as we currently have it. We're going to need to loan and sell some players, but absolutely just great to see the players back. Hopefully they can have some good pre-seasons, and it's going to be exciting now to get back into Chelsea, see what's going, hopefully see some of the pre-season friendlies. We know, of course, Chelsea hopefully will have full capacity at Stamford Bridge at the start of August against Spurs. That's a warm-up game in the Mind series they're doing with facing Arsenal at the Emirates as well. So that's going to be exciting at the start of next month. But really exciting to get pre-season going. Just to see as well, Thomas Tuchel, I mean, his tactical plan, I'm really intrigued to see how it's going to look, because so many rumours at the back end of last year that not only we heard sort of from sources around the club, but just as we discussed, you know, as fans, as we saw with Thomas Tuchel, the way he developed his system. Will he change to a full-back system? Will he stick with the system that won him the Champions League? I mean, that's going to be the big question sort of facing, I think, Thomas Tuchel tactically, to see how he can evolve this team once again, in particular in the Premier League. But we'll get into all of that good stuff as the weeks progress and as we get closer to that opening day game against Crystal Palace, but of course the Villarreal game in the Super Cup too. But Erling Haaland, you know, we've got to speak about it. I may end up titling a section of Let's Talk Chelsea, the Haaland Daily. Our friend Jan here, who was, of course, a big reporter for the Kai Havertz news last year, speaking about Erling Haaland, saying there is no agreement between Haaland or any other club. But he did say yesterday as well, Chelsea are preparing a big offer to check out and challenge Dortmund. He will stay here next season. So Dortmund's approach is very much he's going to stay here, at least publicly. That's what's being briefed at the moment, especially we got quite a few reports out of Germany yesterday. The understanding is that Dortmund won't say no to 175 million euros. Simon Johnson for The Athletic wrote a piece that was a little bit more pessimistic. Should Chelsea wait for Haaland or sign a striker now and maybe miss out on him next summer? It's kind of talking about the potential of this still happening, how close it is. Are reports overblown about how serious Chelsea are, and kind of how maybe unrealistic it is to get Erling Haaland? And what do Chelsea do because they want to sign a top striker? And it's something that I've brought up over and over again this summer in terms of the plan B option. If Haaland can't happen, if we don't want to spend that money, if we're not going to spend that money this summer, who do you go for next? And I've constantly reiterated that for me, unless you're going to try and sign a Lukaku, Lewandowski, I don't think Harry Kane is realistic. To me, I think it'd be a mistake to go for a plan B option. I think there is the problem that you do have with Amanda Brozier, who apparently is the club wants to, of course, sign a new contract. I don't think it's the best for his development to spend a year basically on the bench if he's just going to be a rotational striker. Despite the amount of games we have, I think for a young striker developing, I think it is good he goes out on loan. A bit like how Tammy Abraham, went to the likes of Bristol City, then went to Swansea, then went to Aston Villa. I think personally for him, he needs more minutes after a really promising season. Tammy Abraham, we know Tuchel's stance with Tammy at the back end of last season. I think that's a massive question for Tuchel to answer, because if he isn't going to get Haaland, if he isn't going to get his first choice option, then I think you have to try and reintegrate Tammy Abraham into the squad, because this is a guy who is at least going to get you close to 15 goals, I think, for Chelsea, and maybe with more time and development could go beyond that. I think just letting two strikers go for me has always been something that has worried me, in terms of, yes, we know Kai Havertz can play there and has kind of been transformed under Tuchel into sort of a more of a number 9, so I think you consider him as one of those forwards, but I think we need depth, and I'd rather keep Tammy Abraham as a backup option, someone who could break into the first team, rather than Broja, who I think probably needs a loan for his development. Those are my opinions. The interesting thing about a plan B, as we swiftly move on to the next story about Antoine Griezmann, there's been links about him leaving Barcelona. Barcelona are in a lot of trouble, and I think that's why I'm ruling a lot of these reports out, and I think they probably come from the Barcelona side more than the Chelsea side actually being involved with Antoine Griezmann, because of course they've got big financial problems at the moment. A Lionel Messi contract situation, trying to get him back for the next season. Barca and Real Madrid, especially Barca, are in big trouble at the moment, so they're going to want to ship players out very quickly, and Griezmann is probably one of them. So naturally there's going to be that link to Chelsea, and this comes from Sports Witness here. Chelsea most active club to sign player on exit ramp Blue Sea transfer operation, very favourably. I have to say my instinct for Chelsea is that Griezmann sounds like a deal that Chelsea would do. Shouldn't do this summer, but the narrative of us signing strikers that were brilliant at one point, but we buy them past their prime, the likes of Samuel Eto'o, the likes of Fernando Torres, the list goes on and on, Gonzalo Higuain, Radamel Falcao, you could go through a number of players, Andrei Shevchenko, I mean, they just go on and on and on in terms of strikers who passed their prime by the time they reach Stamford Bridge, unfortunately, and Griezmann falls into that category once again. Short-term options, options that aren't going to serve Chelsea that great. I don't think Griezmann hasn't really hit the heights at Barcelona. I think he probably made that move to Barcelona a little bit late. His prime years were at Atletico Madrid, where he was a simply brilliant forward. For a few seasons, he was one of the best forwards in European football. I'm not, denying that. I think he could still be a quality player. I just can't see this move happening, and it does concern me when I see the likes of Danny Ings, good Premier League striker, but is he improving on what we already have? I said in my conversation with Eunice, I'd rather go with Kai as a number 9 to start with and try and develop Kai Havertz in the current confidence of form he is as that 9 in Tuchel system, then spend 30 to 40 million on a player who isn't going to be here that long, and I just don't think it's a massive upgrade. And I'm going to keep on saying that because I do think it is the smarter play for Chelsea, because I think it's all about funding moves that actually are world class, that actually are going to be elite and really improve what we have. I think that's a general consensus of fans this summer actually, and I think most people have the nightmare of previous transfer window mistakes that we've done at this club, and that needs to be rectified now, because there's so much talent coming through the academy. It's not only in terms of striker. The right wing back situation, I brought up Livramento. We look across midfield, maybe a Chalobah could fill in, maybe an Ethan Ampadu could be developed in the coming years. Billy Gilmour, who's out on loan at Norwich. There is opportunity to save a lot of money with the current first team, develop those young players, maybe have to sell some of them in the future if they're not really good enough for the first team, but then you can invest more on those big signings that you want each summer. Finally, I want to speak about Jorginho, who's had an incredible 2021. I was going to say incredible summer, but he really has had such a brilliant year at Chelsea, and of course now with the Italy national team, and of course winning the Euros on Sunday despite missing a penalty. I do want to say I think it was a brilliant save from Jordan Pickford. I mean, to save a penalty from Jorginho I think is really impressive. I know he went through a shaky patch in the middle of last season, but Jorginho has been exemplary for Chelsea from the penalty spot. He really has throughout his career, and Pickford did so well to keep England in the game. He really did, and probably didn't deserve to be on the losing side based on his performance. But Jorginho, his agent never stopped speaking. Some of our concern about signing Haaland would be Raiola and the amount of noise Raiola makes when a client is at a club. I think we've got a test run with Jorginho's agent, João Santos, who I feel like every week I see a quote from this guy about Jorginho. I think this is more of a positive quote about his future. Last week, this is from Fabrizio Romano. He's staying at Chelsea after the Euros. Tuchel trusts Jorginho and he'll be part of the Chelsea team next season. Not that much of a surprise given his performances. I mean, at Euro 2020, this is from a friend of the channel, Adam Newson. Jorginho covered the most ground of any player at Euro 2020 and made the most interceptions at a European Championship tournament since Opta data has been collected from 1980. He's having an excellent 2021. And absolutely, and letting Gilmour go out alone kind of makes it clear that I don't think any of the current midfielders will be making weight. I think that'd just be a silly move by the club. If you're letting Gilmour go, it kind of opens the door for someone else to come in, potentially if Chelsea want to sign someone there. But in the case of Jorginho, I've constantly reiterated, I think this guy, he does have, his limitations in the game, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but, I think that's an honest opinion. But I do think, as you've seen in recent months under Thomas Tuchel and of course with Mancini, he can be such an excellent metronome in the middle of the park. There are parts to his game that are simply sublime if you get him in a run of form and if you can get him in a system that suits him. Like most players, there aren't many players in modern football that are just excellent in every system. Most players have flaws, but Jorginho, it's always been that case of understanding what he brings to your team, and if you can get the best out of him, he's a really important player, in particular in teams that want to hold a lot of the ball. But I think defensively, what impressed me so much about Jorginho in the back end of 2021, defensively, his performance against Real Madrid, his performances against the likes of Man City, where he was going to new levels in terms of those interceptions, in terms of that dirty work that sometimes you could maybe demean in his game, I think were brilliant. And I think him and Kante have formed such a solid relationship, and if we could add another midfielder to that area, it's going to get even stronger. And hopefully now, I think Jorginho's experience as a winner in the Champions League and of course with the Euros, I think hopefully will give him that knowledge, and I think being able to maybe guide some younger midfielders around him and younger players within the squad, I think that experience of winning internationally and also for his club, I think is just going to make him an even better professional. And I think that Jorginho now is kind of, for Chelsea, he's reached the top of the mountain. That Champions League victory is always going to be remembered. It's always going to be fondly remembered by Chelsea fans. I just think that for him, seeing what he does over the next year, and there's going to be a lot of games, so I think Jorginho, given his age, I think there will need at times to be rotation, just like you have to rotate N'Golo Kante, whether Kovacic comes in, whether a new midfielder comes in, or you've got someone like Trevor Chalobah or Ruben Loftus-Cheek who can maybe stay around and play in that role too. I think we'll have to see what Tuchel does with that area and what Chelsea do in the transfer window. But I'd be happy to see Jorginho sign a new contract. I guess it's just, you look at his age, how many more years is he going to be at Chelsea for? Would it be a 5-year contract? Given his age, I think that'd be a little bit unrealistic. But if he's really happy at Chelsea, it'd be nice for him to sign that contract, because then maybe the noise from his agent would calm down a little bit and we'd know he'd be at Chelsea for a longer period of time. Let me know your opinions about Jorginho, a new contract, all of that good stuff in the comments below. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.